Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking with Rani Al Hajji. Rani, it's great to connect with you. I'm looking forward to talking about your business and your history of what you do. You're a seasoned global executive with over 25 years of experience with L'Oreal and Colgate, really focusing on innovation and consumer goods. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But I would like to start off and talk a little bit about innovation. It used to be, companies, it took companies 25 years to be innovative. Things were, um, uh, not as happening as fast as they are today. Today, innovation is almost kind of a daily discussion. So my question is, what, how do you define innovation today?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you, John, for having me. I'm delighted to be spending some time with you. Innovation is, I think it's when four different things happen together, and I think for me, if you're looking at what makes a successful innovation, it's you need to have a new idea. It can be a new technology. It can be a new way of doing things. So you need to have some sort of a new formula, a new technology coming out. But then you need to match it with a alternative to a proposition that people can relate to. So it has to answer a need or add value to your end consumer or your end customer. So you need to kind of reconcile a technology with a need and turn it into a solution. I think the third dimension that you also need is to be able to figure out a way to make it commercially viable. So a lot of time you can come up with an idea, but the reality is you can't figure out a way to produce it at a scale or to make a margin out of it, and very often it just falters because there's no commercial viability to what is happening. And I think the fourth thing is a certain amount of sustainability. So in today's world, innovations have to be able to live on their feet. They have to have an impact that not only is not negative but actually is positive on whatever environment they operate in, on whatever ecosystem they operate in. And when 20, 25 years ago this wasn't the case, today it's a must. So you need to find a way for it to be able to exist or coexist with its ecosystem in a way that is not only neutral but actually positive. So you need a new idea, a consumer need that is met, a commercially viable proposition, and an aspect of a positive, at least neutral but ideally positive impact on the ecosystem.
Let's talk about new ideas you're talking about. I know you are calling in from Switzerland and you're working with startups in Europe on new ideas and how to cultivate a new idea. And I think a lot of people have new ideas all the time, and but then there's ideas that actually can become something that can make people money, and then there's ideas that people don't even take to the next level. So let's start fundamentally. Somebody has an idea. How do you guide people to actually grow the idea?
Yeah, I think you're right. There's no lack of ideas around the world, and certainly the Swiss and particularly the Zurich ecosystem, with tons of very high level universities, generates tons of ideas. I think one important criteria is to understand who are you talking to. You have an idea, great, but who is your end consumer? Who is your end customer? And sometimes, this is a first kind of level of questioning that is extremely important because it guides a little bit, where you're going, where who you're gonna engage with to be able to validate or adjust or fine tune or get feedback from. So that is an important question. Who are you talking to? Then second thing is
Wait, I
once
just want
you
to pause you for 1 second, Ronnie,
go
because
ahead.
I think the who you're talking to is not something to gloss over. I think that's a very difficult thing for people. Who is the audience, and will they pay for something, right? Will they, is it something that they want for free? Is it something that they value for $1? Is it some, will, so can you just kind of touch on, there's the who, and then there's the who will actually pay for your product and or service?
Correct. And I think this is very closely connected to, is there a problem that you're solving? Is there an issue that you're trying to overcome, that you will help people overcome? And I think if you're able to identify this, and people will call it a pain point or whatever, but if you're able to find something that's not working and that your solution will come and address,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you're starting to build some sort of a value in people's minds, because hey, with this thing, you're making my life simpler, you're making my life better. And if you're able to provide a real solution, and then you're able to articulate the solution in a way that people understand, and is compelling, is convincing, is persuasive, all of a sudden now you're starting to build an equation that starts to make sense. So and then it's a question of, are you willing to pay $5, $50, $200, depending on the magnitude of the issue and the quality of the solution that you're providing. So understand who you're talking to, and then identify an issue that you will be solving.
Yeah. Okay, good. Good. I didn't want to stop your flow, so keep going.
And then it becomes a matter of, uh, is the solution that I'm bringing indeed providing an improvement in people's lives? Is this something that they're willing to exchange a certain value for? What is that value? And then we were talking about a commercially viable proposition. Am I able to have a cost price structure that allows me to, over time, make money and sustain a business and get people to be happy and to repeat, and to come back and repeat that purchase? And this is where you start building a business. And then of course, sorry, to answer your question, I think it's really understand who you're talking to, and really kind of develop and make sure that your solution addresses a need that is so important, or so present, that they're willing to spend money against alleviating that pain point, or this issue.
I want to talk a little bit more about ideas, because I some studies will show, and you know uh, whether they're right or wrong, but many studies will show that 90% of ideas, nothing gets activated. Nothing gets activated. There's a kind of a riddle that I ask a lot of times when I'm doing keynotes in large groups, and I say, five. I share this. I fit this in. Five frogs are sitting on a log, and four decide to jump off. How many frogs are left on the log? And then I call on somebody. Everybody says, "Well, there's one." Or I said, "Well, there's five. They just decided, but they didn't take action." So 90%, maybe 99%. Who knows what that exact number is? But um, but how do you encourage people to actually, or what formula do you give them to activate an idea on a consistent basis to keep the idea alive?
Yeah, it's so I'll give you a biased answer because of my background in consumer goods and fast moving consumer goods. So I think this is an industry and a sector that has a bias for action, and might actually have the opposite problem, which is maybe activating more ideas than what should be, or activating ideas that are maybe not yet completely fully baked or fully thought through, just by just being driven by the need to go fast and do things quickly. And I think it's a balance. So sometimes you have great ideas, they take time to see the light of day, because maybe they're not meeting some of the criteria we spoke about. Maybe you're struggling at the beginning to make them commercially viable. So I think one of the things that may unstuck you is having maybe a sequential plan, which is let's get something to market, even though we might lose some money for the first 12 months. But we have a plan as a second step or as a third step to improve the financials of it, improve the cost
Yeah.
structure, et cetera, et cetera. So I think one of the ways to get more ideas out is maybe to give yourself a little break on some of the criteria, not discarding them altogether, but just saying, okay, I'm mindful of that this particular target is not met at the beginning. However, it is on the radar, and we have a plan to get to it as a second step. But we don't want this to get in the way of putting the idea out in the market. So I think this is one way of doing it. Uh, the other way, and again, I'm giving you a very consumer goods kind of or oriented answer, but sometimes what can happen is you test and you pre-test and you want to validate a lot of things before even launching the product, because you're afraid of failure, because you want to get reassurance, because you want to convince various stakeholders, and sometimes it's also about doing whatever you need to do in terms of due diligence, but then at some point just taking a leap of faith and saying, let's go and put it out there, because the real life environment will give us the feedback that we need to be able to adjust. So those are maybe two things that can help get more ideas out. Uh, but again, you do it in a conscious way, I think.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. Yeah, I think a lot of times, as you're talking about, people come up with the ideas, you launch it. Sometimes, and I find this a lot of times, sometimes you have to launch it in order to get the real feedback so you can then pivot and you can course correct. And so, how do you guide people to course correct without getting burnt out and just throwing everything, away?
Yeah. Uh, so it's actually a good question, because I think you need to understand what is absolutely essential to a product, and that you will never launch something that doesn't meet certain criteria. So for instance, there's no point in launch if a product doesn't meet a consumer need, if you haven't developed it with a certain amount of input from your end customer or end consumer, and with a certain amount of empathy for who they are and what you're trying to bring. There's no way that 6 months later this will be corrected. I mean, if it doesn't have it from the get-go, chances are it won't have it. So you might as well just go back to the drawing board and save yourself the time and the effort and the of launching it and then having to clean up behind. I think back to my point about the financials. It may be that with small volumes you get high costs, but then over time, if you build the volume base and you build the scale, the cost will come down. So this is something that you can adjust down the road. So I think it's important to know what it is that you can live with in terms of imperfections, and go to market mindful of them. Also being mindful that of what happens if you fail, and I think part of being agile and part of being able to go quickly is to actually have a very mature, as a group, and not just the individual in charge of the project, but as a group, to have a very mature conversation around, we're going there with a certain amount of risk, which may have a certain financial implication. Let's not agonize over it, as long as it's quantified, and it's built in the numbers and we can live with it. Let's just agree that this might happen, and we will do everything we can for it not to happen. But let's not agonize over, oh, I'm going to have to make a presentation to the CFO to justify why this went wrong, et cetera, et cetera. Any innovation has a certain amount of risk, and I think uh, identifying and accepting that risk level every once in a while, I think is a good way to avoid getting caught up in the aftermath of a possible failure. And failures happen. I mean, it's part of innovation, and you have to be very, very mindful of the fact that innovation is a school of humility. So you will have failures. Just find a way not to agonize too much over them.
Yeah, well said. Well said. All right, let's do a quick speed round. A book that's had a big impact on you.
Say that again. Sorry.
a book that's had a big impact on you.
So I'm finishing right now a book from a lady called Solitaire Townsend. She's an expert in all things sustainability and really about how to make sustainability happen in today's world where you have lots of conflicting forces coming in. And she takes a very pragmatic approach to things. It's called The Solutionist. And I think the title just says it. It's about finding solution as opposed to getting stuck with the issues.
Yeah, I love it. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
So someone actually told me that marketing and innovation is a school of humility, and it stuck with me.
Yeah,
And I actually repeat it.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Finish the sentence. One thing everybody can do to activate an idea that they've been thinking about for a long, long time is
talk about it around you and seek diverse input, because if you're not moving or if you feel stuck, it's maybe because you're looking at it with the same pair of eyes over and over and over again. So get someone from a different function, from a different with a different pair of eyes to look at it and react to it, and they may actually give you that little piece of feedback, that little piece of impulse that will unlock you and just get you moving.
great. Ronnie, tell everybody who your ideal clients are and where they can connect with you.
So anyone who's curious about innovation, anyone who has an idea, who wants to accelerate their idea, accelerate getting funding, accelerate getting a customer base, just reach out and let's have a chat.
I love it. Ronnie, thanks. This was great. I'm a business coach. I work with people all over the globe who are successful and stuck, get them unstuck. I love the podcast because I get to have people like you on the show from all over the world to give guidance on how people get unstuck. And, I always like to extract at least one thing. And you shared a lot of great things about having an idea and cultivating an idea and growing an idea, but that humility is really, really important. And when you enter the arena, you gotta have humility and you gotta be vulnerable and you gotta throw it out there and take feedback. So I appreciate that. It is a big piece of the recipe. Where can people reach you, Ronnie?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Just drop me a message and I'll connect with you.
Great. And you can reach me at jondwoskin.com. Ronnie, thanks. This was great. I appreciate you chiming in from Switzerland. Thanks so much.
Likewise. Thank you very much for having me. Have a great day.
You too.